Hello, hello. Greetings, everybody. Nice to see some of you here. Should have some music playing, but I'll just dance along to the sounds in my own mind. Greetings to everybody. So, what shall we talk about? What shall we talk about? So much to talk about. There's always so much to talk about. So, so. What's happening in everyone's lives? Hope everyone's feeling great. I'm feeling pretty good. I got some pretty powerful things to talk about. And if there is anybody out there, anybody at all, who is watching, who will watch this after the video has been posted, after it's been live, and you are someone who does not know where to stand with the Bible, whichever culture you have derived your senses from, I'm going to make that really clear. And I'm going to show you all, in as short of time as I can, something extremely powerful that cannot be debated. So a lot of times we hear information. I couldn't number, actually. I could not number the amount of times I've heard things from people, and I just know it's not authentic knowledge, and I feel it. And we all feel it. We all feel when something rings true. And it's funny, that saying, when something rings true, because your heart rings like a bell when you hear the truth. Mine does. My heart rings like a bell when I hear the truth. And the more that I pursue truth, the closer I come to truth, and the more I ground myself in truth. It's like anything. The longer you paint for, the better the artist. The longer you build things for, the better you build. The longer you're doing anything, the better you become. And it's that practice that makes perfect, to give height to your intuition factors. And yeah, so I want to get into it. I want to talk about, I'm going to actually be talking about some passages from the ancient texts, and I'm going to be showing with clarity how there is two stories happening at once in the doctrines of faith. Call them religions. And so with Islam, for example, and with Christianity, many denominations, there's a priesthood, and then there's the people that come to the sermons. And there's a reason why it's called an altar. There's a reason why it's called an altar, because from there, they can alter your consciousness. And did you know, in the cathedrals, where the priest gives the sermon by the tabernacle, did you know that above their heads, there's a symbol in the roof? It's in every cathedral, and it's called a hex. And if we know what a hex is, it is a curse. And if we know what the pole of Saturn looks like, it's a hexagon. So there's many things we can do to show that the empire that we're living in is driven and run from Saturnian force. But we're going to go into a bit of the ancient texts, and I'm going to show you all how much is hidden in front of our eyes. So if you go to church believing that the Eucharist is the body of Christ, and that little biscuit that they eat is just a piece of bread that represents the body of a literary Christ, I'm not going to show you otherwise. I'm going to take you to the truth. And here it is. So I'm going to try and make this as powerful and short as possible. I know that a lot of people watch Netflix, and that's okay. I'm not going to crack the whip today. That'll be in the next episode. My next live, I'll be cracking that whip. For anyone who's watching Netflix and television, it's ritual. It's not your ritual. Does anybody know a show called Sense8? Where one of the main stars, her name in Sense8, so the word, like the show's called Sense, and then it's the number 8. And the word Sense8 means to perceive by the senses. We are all inherently capable to perceive by the senses. And so in this show Sense8, there's a main character, and her name is Amanita Kaplan. Amanita Cap. If we know what an Amanita Cap is, it's this thing. You can't mistake them. This is an Amanita Cap. So, at what point in a television show that's called To Perceive by the Senses do we just think that character holds no connotation to the meaning of the name? So, Amanita Kaplan. So, LAN is, we know it's an acronym for Local Area Network. We know that the land is our local area network, and it's a network, and it has multiple forms and formalities of networking. So whether you know about ley lines, vortices, portals, portal means door. That's what it literally means. And every single one of us, not what I believe, not what you might or might know, the whole history of our Earth knew that portals existed everywhere. And so what is it that these cathedrals are built on? They're all built on the energy lines, the meridian lines that run along the Earth. So what are the cathedrals doing on the highest points of energy on the planet, where we go in there on Sunday to do something, have some form of worship? And if you don't know what you're doing, it is literally a worship. You're in someone's worship, and they're taking you somewhere. And they're taking you on the holy seas, which is what the Vatican likes to call itself. The Vatican likes to refer to itself as the Holy See. And we've got to question things. We've got to question everything. And I say that with a smile, because only through questioning everything have I been able to come to where I am today. The question, it's the quest we're on to find the answer. Quest I on. So Amanita Kaplan is a character in the show that we're watching on this television. And the word LAN, even in Vietnamese, it's a mythical creature that, like a mythical, metaphorical. These doctrines that we're following in 2021, this is the first time in all of recorded history where we take a book and we take it literally. Jesus came as a lamb. He's coming back as a lion, isn't he? Is he coming back as a lion or not? Come on, guys. Do you really believe? Can you feel it in your heart that someone out there came as a lamb and will return as a lion? We have to look at things astrologically, always, as much as possible, because there's a lot going on up there. So, in the television show Sense8, there's a character called Nomi, and you know the gnomes in the garden. You get a set of gnomes. Everyone's got them. Like anyone who's maybe not so much today. There's all sorts of different things that people are putting into their garden. But the gnomes, and the Amanita. We've all got these in our gardens from some time in history. So those gnomes come with an Amanita. But why is it when you use this substance medicinally, do you see all these gnomes appear? So in the show with Amanita Kaplan, there's a person called Nomi, and her name is Sasha Booker in the show. And Sasha means, the word Sasha means defender of man. And Booker is like the book, because you learn through these substances. So sensate, sat. We see the word Saturn in there, and I'll get back to that. I will get back to that. I want to talk about the etymology. The etymology of the word Amanita. Etymology is so important. When we look at words, we can find ourselves. So, person. Look at the word person. Per, son. And you can see it as the Son of God. You can see it as not a sun in the sky. You can see it as non-astrology, if you like. But every doctrine is based on astrology, written by astrologers. And there's two versions. There's the version for the initiated, and there's the version for the Goyam. And the Goyam is the non-initiated, I'll say. I won't actually talk about the real cultural aspect of Goyam, because I'd be saying a word that is forbidden on this network, and it's the only thing I know mostly people get blocked for. So, yeah, Amanita. Aman means, sorry, I'm going to go back for a second. So I was talking about the word person. So person, every single person is a aspect of the sun. Sun, person. You are all persons, and we are all aspects of the sun. That's why our rhythm of our heart pulses a wave of rhythm, the same rhythm of the sun. And you can actually see the sun. You can see it pulsing. It's the swastika. It's the swastika of the SS soldiers in Germany. And if you get the S's and put them together, it becomes the swastika. And that swastika, if you look at the symbol, it's an ancient sun symbol. And when you turn the swastika, it becomes the portal, because the sun is a portal. It's an interdimensional portal. Just see things as simply as electric and magnetic, and you will understand astrology, because everything is circuit, everything is spiralic. There's nothing in the universe that is not spiralic. So anyways, per sun, we're all individuals of the sun, and that's why we are in the image of God. Because the word God comes from the word Zeus, sun. Amanita, the etymology of the word Amanita is Aman, protection. So the word Aman means protection, and Ita is connected to, is what it means. So when you say Amanita, the word actually means connected to protection. Connected to protection. So I'm going to read a passage from Exodus in the Bible. So if you're all sitting in your chairs and you've got your Bibles out, we'll turn to page 66, chapter 6. Not really. However, we're going to go to Exodus 16. And I'm going to read from the King James Version, because the King James Version is the only translation. We need to look at the depths of translation. We can't just read a Bible and say, no, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Psh. It's the most beautiful book on astrology ever written, and we find everything in there if we're looking at it with open eyes. So I only use the King James Bible because that Bible was transliterated from the 1599 Genevan Greek Bible, and that Geneva Bible was directly translated from Hebrew. So if we want to understand the teachings of Hebrew, you have to go to the Hebrew teachings. I don't speak Hebrew. I know Hebrew words, but I don't speak fluent Hebrew. So if I opened up a Hebrew Bible, I wouldn't know what to do with it. You know, so KJV was actually translated by William Shakespeare. If you get any of William Shakespeare's workings out and you put those books together with the Bible, the King James Version, Sir Francis Bacon, Sir Francis Drake, or William Shakespeare, they are all the same people. And the word Shakespeare comes from goddess Athena in Greece, and she shook the spear in the face of ignorance of the people for their lack of knowledge. Name any city in the world. Walk down the main street of the city, especially where the main town centre is, and you'll see right up on top of that building, goddess Athena. There she is with her spear, holding it above the ignorance of the people for their lack of knowledge. But you wouldn't think that. You'd just think, oh yeah, that's an old statue. I'm going to go to work now. Come on, let's look at statues and what they are. So, Exodus 16. I'm going to show you how the bread of heaven was not bread. If you believe that 1611, that's right. Galileo 1611, KJV 1611. So Exodus 16. I'm going to make this as entertaining as possible because I swear to God, anytime I read the Bible as a kid, I was just fucking out of there. Like, it was the most boring thing ever. So I'm going to try and keep it as... I'll do a few dances in between. So, Exodus 16. And they took their journey from Elim. So, Elim... I'll first say Exodus is when... Exodus is a mass departure of people. And that's a pilgrimage. And a pilgrimage is when you go on a spiritual quest to find God. When you go to find yourself. So, Elim is a place just outside of Egypt where there is wells of water and 60 date trees, or 70 date trees. And this is where the Israelites camped by the water. So the importance of this, when we're looking at the script of the magicians that write 2 books at once, the importance of this is when you're fasting, we need to look at words. Breakfast. When you have breakfast, look at the word. Break, fast. You're breaking your fast. However, when you're sleeping, you're not, that's not considered as fasting. Fasting is considered as periods of time throughout the day where you form abstinence between eating food and having an empty stomach so that you can feel more sensitively. And so I'm going to show you all, written into the Bible, that the way to connect to God is, and I'm this is don't argue with me, argue with the text, because they tell you the truth in everything they do. So keep in mind, I'm just sort of breaking it down a bit, that we're talking about an event where people are fasting during a spiritual pilgrimage. So, and they took their journey from Elim from Egypt. And the Israelites camped near the waters. And all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, of the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full, for ye have brought us forth into the wilderness, to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Don't take it literally. They're talking about abstinence of food, fasting. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not. The divine law. not the written law, not common law, the law of God. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moses and Aaron said unto the children of Israel, at evening, then ye shall know what the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt, and in the morning, then ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings. So murmurings is like chanting. So it's a ceremony. We're talking about a ceremony here. What are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. And Moses spake unto Aaron, say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmurings. And it has come to pass, as Aaron spake until the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread. And ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. And it come to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around the host. So just to add in there, quails actually represent higher knowledge. And if you notice in the last part there, they talked about the quail coming up, covering the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around the host. Keep in mind the host. And when the dew that lay up was gone, behold, upon the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. Hoarfrost is like the ice particles when you can actually see it fractalizing. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, it is manna, Amanita, manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, this is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat. This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tents. So an omer is a measurement in ancient Kemet or in Egypt for a dry unit of measurement. So we're talking about a dry substance, because if it's not dry, it has either tannic acid, and it can make you sick, and it will make you sick. So it needs to be dry. It's written in here. I'm just reading the Bible. So what are they really symbolically eating as the Eucharist? What is the body of Christ truly? What is the body of Christ truly? And the children of Israel did so, and gathered, some more, some less, because when you go out into the jungle and you all go out to find mushrooms, you are not all going to find the same amount of mushrooms. So the children of Israel did so. They gathered, some more, some less. And when they did meet with an omer, small measurement of a dry unit, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. So basically, they all shared the amount that they had. Beautiful, beautiful. Makes me want to cry. But it makes me want to cry that people go to church and actually believe that it's a literary thing. It's symbolic. Everything in that place is symbolic, and that's why you see symbols all around the cathedrals, all around the churches. Moses said, let no man leave it until the morning. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses. So, hearkened is when you have respect for what somebody's actually saying to you. So, notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses. So they didn't respect what Moses said when he said, don't leave it until the morning. So let's see what the Bible says happens to this when you leave it until the morning. This is my favorite part. Not when you leave it till the morning though. But But some of them left it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was wroth with them. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And when the sun waxed hot, it melted. So do we understand that we're certainly without question talking about magic mushrooms in the Bible? It's right there. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of them congregation came and told Moses. And he said unto them, This is that which the Lord hath said, Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. So the original Sabbath was Saturday. And isn't it interesting that the Amanita has a symbiotic relationship with pine? And in herbalism, Saturn rules the pine. This is all things that we need to keep in consideration when we're looking at this Bible that people give their life for, rather than just a beautiful book of poetry when seen in a way of enlightenment. So you can use that Bible to illuminate yourself, or you can use it to destroy yourself. 6 days ye shall... missed a bit. And they laid it up until the morning, as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. Just too many giveaways for what we're actually talking about. And Moses said, Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field. 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. So now you know what the Sabbath is all about. Now you know what the Sabbath, is really about. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the 7th day for to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said unto them, How long you refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath. Therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day, because with an omer per piece, we go in. We go in. So the people rested on the 7th day, and the house of Israel called the name thereof manna, Amanita, and it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So anyone who's actually, got to be careful what I say here because of what I'm doing, it was like wafers made with honey. It's right there. And Moses said, This is the thing which the Lord commandeth, fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations. Your generations that come after you, they need this. And that they may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness, where I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moses said unto Aaron, Take a pot, and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord to be kept for your generations, as the Lord commanded Moses. So Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years, until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. So Canaan is the promised land that was promised by God to the people. So it was heaven on earth. Heaven on earth. So that's just looking at one aspect of the story of the Bible. So stepping away from Exodus, stepping away from the story of the pilgrimage of the inner self, I'm going to go to the Gospel of John now. And in the Gospel of John, it talks about, 6:48 to 51. This is 48. I am the bread of life. The bread of life is the tree of life. Is the forbidden fruit, is the forbidden knowledge. I am that bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. See it as the death realm. See it as the metaphysical spiritual realm. Don't see it as they're dead. But this goes on to explain that further. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread, the circle thing, that if you leave till sunlight, it rots and it stinks and the worms come and it lays up on the dew on the forest in the morning, and when the dew goes. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. So they're talking about the fact that you're mingling with death, but you do not die. I am the living bread. So the bread that Jesus was handing out wasn't alive. And if you actually know how multiple cultures around the planet prepared the Amanita, or the Soma, or the Muscamol, or the Muscaria, many names that she goes by, that they actually create a living bread where they put a ferment with the Amanita spores, and you actually see the bread come to life. Because in the temperatures that we prepare these, they still have the spores, so you can make the bread of life. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. Doesn't it kill you? Would I die if I ate that? No one's ever died. Nobody has ever died from connecting with God in the inner world, because we are God. We are made in the image of God because we are God. It's as simple as that. If something's made in the image of something, it is that. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. Forever. And that bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. This is the flesh of Christ. Christ was not a Messiah. Your Messiah is a beautiful, beautiful person. So I've got another book here, really powerful one from Donald Teeter, and it's Donald Teeter. He studied Amanita Muscaria for 37 years. He studied all of the cultural perspectives in his time, and he wrote a really wonderful book that I can recommend to anybody, and it's called Amanita Muscaria, the Herb of Immortality. Going back to the verse before, where if any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. So in this book, I'm just going to read some parts of it. He mentions the Soma in the Vedas. So in the Rig Veda, in in the Rig Veda of the Vedic tradition, I'm just going to read an excerpt from that. This here is Soma, never restrained, active, all-conquering, bursting forth, a seer and a sage, by Sapiens. All that's bare he covers over, all the sick he medicines, the blind man sees, the cripple walks. Boom. That's where Christ gave vision to somebody who was blind, and the man that couldn't walk. So all the cultures hold this tradition. And so in this book, The Plant of Immortality, he talks about the Persian Haoma and the ambrosia and nectar of the ancient Greeks, and they are referred to as herbs of immortality. And he says, Soma was said to be an Indian version of the Greek word of intoxication, Dionysus. So if we know Dionysus was born of a virgin and of an immaculate conception. So that sounds like Krishna. It sounds like Osiris. Sounds like all of those who came before him. So we need to understand that every culture was practicing something. What might that something be? He says, the ancient Indo-Europeans called the Amanita muscaria mushroom maga. Maga, magic, the great gift. And so great was this gift that its fame and name echoes down the ages as the root of our modern word magic, the magus or magi. Great gift bearers used this truly wondrous great gift of nature that healed their bodies of sickness and inspired their minds with wisdom and poetry. Whew, deep. And they praised it in long story and song, even worshipping the gift as God, it being the only source of an incredible magic. Deep. The great gift bears hundreds of different ancient names. The Greeks called it ambrosia, which means, in Greek, not mortal. The nectar of the gods. And they referred to it in Greece as the herb of immortality. The Holy Grail, the living bread, the anointed one. Christos, to be anointed with oil. Very interesting, isn't it? And something else I wanted to add in as well was the symbiosis between the Amanita and the trees. So Amanita muscaria does not just grow in dog feces beside the kennel in a backyard. It has this divine connection with certain trees, such as pine. And if you haven't seen my video, The True Origin of Christmas, you have to go and see it. You need to understand what power she has to have everybody worshipping this at Christmas without actually knowing. So yeah, I wanted to talk about a few other trees as well. So we've got the olive of the Bible, very, very well recognized in that book. And the olive tree is one of the plants that Amanita has mutual symbiosis with. So what are we really referring to when we refer to the olive branches when we're talking about Christ? What are we really talking about? So pine, spruce, hemlock, fir, larch, birch, beech, maple, poplar, elder, hazel, and olive. They're the main trees that Amanita has mutual symbiosis with. And the reason why we have the Immaculate Conception, my understanding is that all cultures refer to her as the Immaculate Conception because she comes from literally out of the sky. Like nothing has to give a seed. Like it doesn't have to have a seed there. It is connected to the mycelium network, but it doesn't just... We have this perception that is, what came first, the chicken or the egg, the seed or the life? When we understand things metaphysically, we can get a grasp on how deep things are metaphysically. Higher than physically. I know people that say, I'm not into metaphysics. You're practically saying that you are separate from the truth, that you don't want the truth. And one thing I will say about this, one thing I will tell you about this fantastic woman is if you enter her, or she enters you, or you enter each other's paths, and you're still living a life thinking that you're cool, she will destroy you. She will completely and utterly destroy that part of you. Because my understanding is that she works on the part of your values and your life that you first orientate in the first 6 years of your life, which is where you gain most of your personality from. So she goes into that place. So Amanita Dreamer on YouTube has beautiful videos. And she talks a lot about things that you won't find in the scientific community, because what they've done in the scientific community is they've banished this plant. They've banished this power plant, this beautiful medicine. You can't find it anywhere in the Western paradigm that refers to it anywhere relatively close to the ancient texts or the ancient cultures that were so endearly connected to this substance. So yeah, it's I wrote a post about a month ago, maybe a bit less, maybe 3 weeks ago, on how much mushrooms have changed my life. And yeah, like, we're talking about psilocybin though, like, she really showed me everything. I was seeing a girl at the time. We weren't, like, fully seeing each other, but we were seeing each other a little bit. And we were at a friend's house. And as soon as I had my first mushroom experience, it started raining harder than I've ever experienced in my life. And I just started tripping out hard. I was like, what the fuck's going on? And I looked over at her and I just saw this witch, like this evil witch. I could see straight through her character, but she actually formed into this nasty looking creature. And I screamed and I was like, you're a witch. And she was like, what are you talking about? I'm not a witch. And I was like, oh shit, nothing. Like, I didn't know what to say, because I gave the truth. And based on that experience, I didn't take it further. And it's interesting how, like, a lot of people talk about set and setting. Set and setting. So what is your environment? If you're in a hospital and you're with about 10 people that you don't know, and you have communion with the Eucharist, set and setting. What is your mindset? Where are you set in? So if you're somewhere that you don't feel comfortable with a bunch of people that you don't know, you are in for a hell of a ride. However, she grows in the jungle, and so therefore she's showing you where she likes to be used or worked with, and who are the people around you. It's not hard to get a group of people that you feel good with. And beware if you're in a relationship and you take this and you see something in somebody, because you can't say that that's your opinion or perception, because potentially you've never seen this before and you've just been given this open vision of clarity. If we look at the word psychedelic, the etymology of the word psychedelic means clear vision. But they don't use the word psychedelic in the Western hospitals. They don't use the word psychedelic in Western science. They use the word entheogen, which the etymology of the word entheogen is manifesting God within, manifesting the divine within. Manifesting the divine within, won't that kill me? No. No one's ever died from it. People have only died spiritually from not taking that voyage. And yes, there's a lot of people that say, oh, I'm not into that stuff. I do yoga. That's how I go to God. And I just see the vanity in these people. And if we really believe, if we really feel, and we really somehow resonate with the fact that we don't need to work with nature in order to be in nature, I'm sorry, but you're crazy. And I've just shown you the texts in the magician's book that state very clearly what will happen. If you don't do it correctly, God will be mad. So why would God be mad for you not connecting to, I'm not going to say him or her, but if you're not connecting to the divine through her, she's very feminine. She's very feminine. And that's why I recommend Amanita Dreamer, because I love hearing the perspective of Amanita through the eyes and vision and vocals of a female, because it is a female substance. She's very feminine. Whereas some other substances can be more masculine, like DMT or dimethyltryptamine, last night I was lying in bed and I had this thought download. I was like, I'm going to look for a constellation that looks exactly like the molecular structure of Muscimol. So the reason why people say that Amanita is poisonous is because it has ibotenic acid, which if you don't convert it to Muscimol, you'll be sick. So there's many times where we have to do something to something for it to be effective. So I was in bed last night and I was like, I wonder if I can find a constellation that looks exactly like Muscimol, the molecular structure. Because in Kemet, they all believed, they all knew. And I know in all cultures, they knew that every compound in alchemy can be found in the stars. As above, so below. As it is in heaven, so it shall be on earth. So there I was, like 10 minutes later, I was looking up constellations because I know how the Vatican operates. They'll call something close to what it is, and then they'll create a divide and split in the mind so people can't find it. So there I was, typing in the word Muscimol constellation to see what I could conjure up, and there it was, the constellation Musca, and it's the exact same composition of molecule structure as Amanita muscaria. Or muscimol, I should say, because all of the amanitas have muscimol. And the main reason why Amanita has got such a bad connotation to it is because one of the amanitas, the Amanita phalloid, is also known as the death cap. And you wouldn't just wander into the jungle not knowing what you're looking for. We need to know what we're looking for. We need to know what something is. We need to know who someone is before we invite them into our house. Same applies in nature. And there's a codex. There's a codex in nature which, depending on where it grows, depending on where it thrives the most, depends on what that substance is used for. So in nature, like in herbcraft, we've got coagulating plants and anticoagulating plants. So always in nature, right beside each other, we've got blood thickening plants growing right beside blood thinning plants. Why do you think that is? Because nature knows at times that you need to have your blood thickened or thinned. So how did we lose this code? More importantly, how do we get back to her? How do we learn the teachings of the Soma, of the Muscaria, of the Amanita? How do we learn the teachings of the Ambrosia, of Christ, the body of Christ? Why in every country in the world are there cathedrals where Jesus is an Amanita? In Islam, Barak is one of the judges, like Santa. He judges if you're naughty and nice. Santa Amanita. Barak is the gateway defender of Islam, the judge, the gatekeeper, the judge. And would you believe it, that if you look at the most ancient depictions of Barak in Islam, it's depicted as the Amanita muscaria. And you can't put me beside me and say, that's not me. Because when you see something and it's the same, it's in the image of God, you are God, everything has a code. You can't mistake that. You can't not see that. And once you see it, eyes open. So, yeah, I just wanted to build some comfort in people with what I'm doing. And I know who rules this realm in the contract form, in the temporary realm, from the temples, the Templars. And I know what happens in their temples. I've had friends in high places, people I've disassociated with now. I've still got friends in high places. And I know. I spent most of my life in Australia. So some people call the ancient Australian storytelling Dreamtime. And if you write the word Dreamtime down, you'll see the letters DMT shining through that word. And Dreamtime is the way of telling stories. and it's the truth that remains in those stories. So when you open up a book of the Dreamtime that was written by, like, it was believed by black man, but it's a book written by the white man, we need to go back to the roots because of how much culture has tarnished certain aspects of other cultures. Very good stuff, someone said. It is very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. If you ever see these, don't ever fear them. Because what you're actually doing when you have a hold of fear for these is you are fearing you. Because this thing will take you into the depths of you and closer to you, and it will strip away your ego. And when you think you don't have an ego, put your ego measurement of yourself up against this and we'll see. She really looks after you. And in what I just read in the Bible, it stated that they ate of the flesh of the pot, then they went to sleep, and then they woke up with the difference. So it's very different to psilocybin. With psilocybin, you get the visions that come out straight away. First time I ever used psilocybin, no, it was the second time, I used it with synthetic lysergic acid, which is also known as LSD. And I actually looked at the sky. First time I looked at the sky, I could see the depth of field between the stars. So usually, like, when you go out and look at the stars, you would see just a bunch of dots in the wheel of astrology in the zodiac. And I could actually see which stars were further away. And I could, like, it was insane. It was opening up a vision to what I'd never seen. And there's been other times where I had visions of just all these eyes appearing, and I knew everything had eyes, everything had a vision. But then I went back to sleep. I came back into this realm, and why do they draw on the temples of Egypt in every culture of the world? Why can I go to every country and there's the Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Medu Neter? The Medu Neter, they never called them hieroglyphs in Africa. They never called them hieroglyphs. They were called the Medu Neter. That was the language of Greater Kemet, or that was the language that was spoken by the Africans in the World Trade Center. The Nile Delta was the World Trade Center. That's where all the ships were coming in to do business of the world. Africa was thriving. And in the earlier dynasties of Kemet in Egypt, everyone was using these. And then towards the middle dynasties, only the priests were using these. And then towards the end of the dynasty, when Napoleon went in for the Pope to destroy Kemet, only the highest priests were using this. And yeah, it was Barak who gave Muhammad the vision. So who is Barak if Barak in Islam is depicted as an Amanita when Muhammad came back with the vision to give the doctrine of the faith of Islam? If not Christ of Christianity, it's all the same being. And I have nothing but great respect for her. And I know she has great respect for me because of what she's doing in my life right now. And I'm not going to tell you what to do in life, but I will tell you that I can only tell you to use this externally, and I can legally distribute. What sort of world are we living in when you can only use such a thing for external use? I have a really bad pain in my neck, 10 out of 10 pain sometimes. I've got scoliosis, which is Greek for crooked, which means my spine is crooked. And I rub a bit of tincture on my 10 out of 10 pain, and I've never had anything like this. Like, I'm not here on your television trying to say, like, you know, buy now for, but as soon as it hit my skin, the pain went away, and like nothing would do that. Nothing could do that. And how I really got into Amanita is my wife is pregnant, and we started looking up at the start of her pregnancy. Like, I knew a lot about pregnancy before I met her, before we had a child on the way. And we just, at that moment, we really started deeply looking into like the natural remedies and the natural side of it. And lo and behold, Amanita was used for the induction of the child through labor. So when the child was in the mother's body, how many mothers are watching me right now that went through so much pain? And so all over her body she has pain because of the strenuous carry of an extra 20 kilograms in less than a year of time. Like, the body is under a lot of stress. Where are we without nature? Because everywhere I apply this onto her body when it's sore, instantly the pain goes away. Why is nobody talking about this? Why is everybody talking about CBD oil? Why is nobody talking, like, who owns the marijuana trade, the legal marijuana trade? And I'll tell you something now. The amount of times I've heard people say, marijuana's illegal because they can't tax it. They can fucking tax anything they want. And they do. They tax anything they want. How many people do you know that have smoked the joint more than once that trust the government? No one has smoked weed more than once and trust the government. That's your answer. The reason why that substance is illegal is because marijuana is like cannabis is classed as a psychedelic. Psychedelic means clear vision. You see it, you got it, and you go with it. So, like, before I smoked marijuana, before I smoked the magic herb, when I was younger, I didn't know what to believe. I smoked a bong, and I just saw it was all bullshit. I knew it was all bullshit, and so I went with that, and nothing could change that. So, yeah, it's a beautiful world we live in. It is a beautiful world that we live in. And how do we get more connected to that beauty of the world? I used to go out fighting a lot. I used to go out causing a lot of trouble because there was a lot of trouble happening in here. I don't know if, I forget his name. I had a few conversations with him, but he was running a covert illegal operation called what was it called? Entheogens for PTSD soldiers. So if you can imagine, I'm not going to talk about what the wars are really about. Go and read my posts, you'll see. Imagine going to war for the Pope, no matter what country you live in. That's right, that's what's really happening. So imagine going to war, being told that's what you're there for, and then coming out and realizing that you just went and killed 1,400 people, headshot on the hills, and you realize that each of them had a child, and you go home and you have this heavy weight in you for what you've done. I can only imagine. I could never come close to what that would be like. So everyone's got trauma. Everybody's got some form of pain. And we all turn to psychiatry and psychology, but no one turns to psychedelic, which has been around for ever since the dawn of man. And that's why they sell CBD. Because it's regulated. I've got friends that are working on different cannabis farms around the planet. And if you knew what they sprayed it with, like, if you've got something that's blue and then you paint it red, it's not blue anymore, it's red. So when you change something by putting things over it, things really start to change. And we are by nature, so we thrive on nature. Going back to like the Egyptian language, Meru Necha, where do you think the word Mother Nature comes from? Meru Necha is what the Kemites call their language. And the Meru Necha, by understanding the language, you understand the stars. So as an ancient 17th century I'm talking, everyone calls it ancient Egypt. It's not ancient. Do you know Napoleon went into Kemet and destroyed everything. And guess when Captain Cook came to Australia? Same time. So what was the connection between Australia and Africa? If you go to any British museum, you have Egypt on one side of the museum, and on the very other end of the museum, you have Africa. But isn't Egypt in Africa? That's what they don't want you to know. Everyone wants you to think, oh yeah, like, the ancient Egyptians, they were so good and so wise. Why doesn't anyone call it for what it is? Why don't they call them the modern Africans? It wasn't that long ago. My great, 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 great grandma was around when Egypt was destroyed. And there's still people that have the knowledge today. There's still people that hold the knowledge today. And if you can't find an elder that can take you to the knowledge, go into the bush. Because do you know what they did to attain their elderhood? To become adept in what they do? 9 months in the bush. How long did you spend in the womb? In your mother? 9 months in the womb. Then you come out. And then at what point do you do your study here? Because while you're in the womb for 9 months, your first eye, your pineal gland, is downloading all the information from the ether. And that's why they get you when you're young, because that programming needs to come out. Otherwise, you'll be like me. You'll be free. And they don't want that. It's only a matter of time until, if you don't do this and you don't do that, then you don't have access to the internet. I'm watching. I didn't know it would be so soon. But yeah, so going back to the Medu Neter, the language of Kemet, by understanding the language of the Medu Neter, they understood the star domain, the plant domain, the mineral domain, the animal domain, and the human domain, the main 5 domains, and they believed they knew. There was a spirit that run through all of those domains, and they called it Atum, which means the all, which is where the word Adam comes from, which is where Adam, the story of Genesis, comes from. In the beginning, there was Adam. Then we go to science. In the beginning, there was atoms. My name is Adam. If you say my name backwards, it's matter. Atoms are matter. We need to understand codes. This is how they do it. Everything's by code. And when you've got the codex, no one can take that away from you. So what can we do to break free? And I highly recommend that if you're someone who likes to read and you've got time up your sleeve, everyone's got time up their sleeve, plenty of it. It's funny how they say time up your sleeve, but the watch is at the start of the sleeve. Anyways, it's called a watch because they want us watching it. It's called a clock because they want us locked. And isn't it funny when you look at the time, you look down, can't you look up? The time is always the same in astrology. It's right there. So how do we access the library of the all? To know the spirit that runs through everything? Don't expect to have visions, but expect to wake up in your dream. Something will happen. You'll see the elves. You'll see a lot, and you'll never forget it. Or you can take a tiny bite of the apple. Look at the original depictions of Adam and Eve by the tree of knowledge. It's the Amanita. So I didn't come on here to say, maybe guys, there's a possibility that everything's bullshit and here's the truth. I didn't come on here to have opinion. I came on here to shatter the truth through a screen. And we're free. Because Only when ye have the truth, then ye shall be free. But I'm free. I pay a little bit of electricity, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Only when ye have the truth, then ye shall be free. What truth? So when you take a bite of the apple, just going to use keywords, like they do in the church. When you take a bite of the apple, if you have a little bite, if you're a coffee drinker, don't even drink coffee. Just one morning wake up and have a little bite from the apple, and you'll notice that you're not sick on the ground, foaming at the mouth, dying. If it's done right, you'll notice that little things happen in little amounts. Big things happen in big amounts. Let the saying ring true. So, yeah, I've said all I really want to say. What else can we talk about? Aliens. What about the aliens? Do you reckon we're going to have an invasion soon? Fucks me. Like, I'm just got me binoculars looking out for the aliens. Guys, we need to wake up. Like, the things that people are interested in, you go turn the History Channel on to Ancient Aliens, how the ancient aliens built the pyramids. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Stop rejecting Kemet history, because the Kemites knew how to build, and they still do. And you go down to Melbourne City in Australia, on Flinders Street. Matthew Flinders, he was a brilliant man, wasn't he? He came in with force. I'll just call it Flinders Street. Go to Flinders Street Station. Look up, like, go to Google Images. Go to Google Goggle. Go to the Goggle. Google Goggle. Go to Google. Go to Images and look up Flinders Street Station. And you'll see that building is on one of the highest energy points in the world. It is the start of the meridian point of the world. So we have a meridian point that runs through the body, and you've got the Ida and Pingala, the magnetic and the electric, that goes up the spine. The Earth has the same way of being, and the ancient people knew that she was alive in the same mannerisms that we were. So Flinders Street Station starts at the beginning of the ley lines, or the song line that the serpent swims along. And on that street, Flinders Street, apparently those buildings were built around 1930, 1890. No, they weren't. Melbourne was empty, and they repopulated it. And you wonder why those buildings... Go look at the Ticketek building. That building's got to be at least 700 years old. All of the buildings on Flinders Street, 500 to 700 years old. Flinders Street Station, you really think they built that as a train station? And you stand out the front of it, and you've got all of the clocks, times of the world. Why do they put the time on it of all the different places in the world? If you want to know what a time machine really looks like, because we had this technology freely available to everybody, if you want to know what a time machine looks like, don't turn on the History Channel. Don't go to Ancient Aliens. Look up Flinders Street Station. Look up the Queen Victoria Hotel. They're all literal time machines, because on the ley lines, they all work as a portal grid point. And if you don't know what portals are, the word porta means door. And on television shows, on movies, Roman Catholic theatre, that's what Hollywood was originally called. I could swear the only thing they make movies about is portals and portal jumping, and they give us this so that we are so far. We think, oh, fantasy land, fantasy world. No. It's not. It's not fantasy. They took it away from us. And all of those buildings, you look up any town hall in the world, we can't build those buildings anymore. So how the fuck was that built in 1920? Like, why can't we build those buildings anymore? There was a video of a guy doing a fix on one of the architraves of the Flinders Street Station. He was fixing one of the window sections, and in the video he was one of the best engineers in Melbourne. This was 4 years ago, and he said nothing like this has ever been done in the world. So hang on a second, if this building was built in 1930 and is less around about 100 years old, How's like nobody done a modification to the outside of the building? What they don't want us to know is what these buildings were. Why do you think in Melbourne, like I love Melbourne, it's so amazing, like the buildings and everything, they're just, they paint a picture. Why do you have Power Street with a cathedral on it? And then where the street runs alongside Power Street, they have Junction Road. I could swear it's in every country in the world, this layout. And a junction in electricity is where multiple points of power come together. They tell you what they're called. That's why in Manhattan is known as the Battery. And that's why you have Battery Park. And the whole of Manhattan is a battery, and it's an energy charge point. And they won't tell you this. They'll just tell you that it's the World Trade Center, and yeah, it's not. It's New York City. New Amsterdam is so old. It's thousands of years old. All of the cities of the world, thousands of years old. So yeah, if you think that these convicts, these skilled convicts, came in the late 18th century and built these beautiful, beautiful structures that are built of the same material as the pyramids, as charging points and energy generators. So there's magic occurring, and that's what I wanted to do my video on. I wanted to talk about literal magic, and I wanted to give the magic back, because through story, that's how the elders became elders. That's how the initiated became initiated. That's how the children came into adulthood. It was through the storytelling. And the more you know, the more you grow, because it's through knowledge that we go through our rite of passage into adulthood. And that's what they took from us. And I don't mean to be rude to say that most men are merely children. They are. Most men are children. I very rarely do I find 60, 70-year-old men that I can have a very wise conversation with. It's just, what do you think about Bill Clinton? A pedophile? What do you mean? You're probably thinking of Walt Disney. He was a pedophile. No, they're friends. Friends? But in the book I read, no. I don't really care about these books they read. I go into people's houses and I look at their bookshelf and I'm like, not to sound too rude, but that just paints a picture of what's right here. And there's so much to find in nature. You don't need books. You need connection. And if you think Wi-Fi came about as a gift of man, you need to wonder what grid was there in nature for us to tap into. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. And make sure you go to reindeeramanita.com, because I love you, and I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this to bring us back to the original knowledge. So I can't talk about internal use of my product. I will not. I didn't in this video. I was just talking about stories in the Bible. And yeah, so yeah. See you all there. Much love.